Hey everyone, Dave here for another Blu-ray DVD collection update / haul video. This is the extra video for the month of March 2022, even though by the time I've uploaded this, it is April. We'll talk about that in a moment. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the latest releases from Vivision Entertainment, the latest Imprint Wave, and a bunch of stuff that I personally picked up myself throughout the month from JB Hi-Fi, Amazon sales, and a bunch of other stuff I picked up online. At that, there's a whole lot of stuff to take a look at, so let's get into it. Okay, so as I said, this is the extra video for the month of March 2022. I did put a previous video up about a week ago where I went over all the most recent titles from Umbrella Entertainment and Kicks.com.au. If you want to check that one out, you can check it linked up in the top corner or at the end of the video. In this video right here, we will once again be taking a look at the most recent wave of titles from Vivision, the most recent wave of Imprint titles, and the most recent bunch of stuff that I've picked up online or in store or whatever else, just on my personal buys. At that though, let's kick this off by taking a look at the latest wave of Imprint titles. I believe this is wave 13, if my counting isn't off. I can't believe it, 13 waves. Let's have a look at what we got. Of course, coming in at number 102 and 103 is the Jerry Lewis at Columbia box set collection. This includes two films, The Big Mouth and Hook, Line and Sinker. Of course, two films that Jerry Lewis did while he was at Columbia Studios. As we're used to from Imprint's box sets, this comes in a nice sturdy hard box, which features double-sided box art featuring two separate images of Jerry Lewis, one from each of the movies inside the set. The box, of course, opens up to reveal both movies inside their own individual Amaray cases. In The Big Mouth, on a San Diego beach, Gerald Clamson fishes out of the water a look-alike frogman who gives him a map to a stash of stolen diamonds coveted by several crime syndicates. And in Hook, Line and Sinker, a man, played by Jerry Lewis, is told by his doctor, played by Peter Lawford, and best friend, that he has a terminal illness. At his wife's urging, he lives life to the fullest, racking up insurmountable debts. When the damage is done, his friend the doctor tells him that he's not dying. Unfortunately, his life will eventually be ruined by his actions. Both of these films are presented with exclusive audio commentaries, TV spots, theatrical trailers, textless opening and closing titles, and isolated music and effects audio tracks. Also included here is a Super 8 original cut-down home cinema presentation of The Big Mouth, as well as a full episode of The Dick Cavett Show with Jerry Lewis, recorded in 1972. So you all know that I'm a big fan of Jerry Lewis's comedic films, particularly the stuff from the earlier part of his career, the stuff he did with Dean Martin. The stuff towards the later part of his career, kind of the mid part of his career, I'm not a huge fan of. We find this with a lot of comedians when they, do the same shtick for 10, 20 years, they're kind of middle-aged, they're doing the same kind of stuff that they did when they were in their 20s. The comedy has become stale, it's not as good, it feels a little bit repetitive. This is kind of that career stage for Jerry Lewis. These two movies, we're talking the late 1960s, where he's now at Columbia Studios. I think these are the only two films he did at Columbia. These aren't great movies, these are certainly not classics as far as Jerry Lewis films are concerned. These are movies where a lot of the gags are stuff where you feel like, hey, I've seen all this before, feels a little bit repetitive. Even the storylines aren't that great. But look, there's some great comedy in here. Of course, Jerry Lewis is the king of slapstick. A lot of great slapstick stuff in here. Really great kind of one-liner things. Lewis does a couple of little funny little characters. Interestingly, Hook, Line and Sinker is the first movie where I can say that I've seen where Jerry Lewis is just using his regular voice, just talking like a regular guy. And I actually thought it was really quite fun. The story of that's fun, it's really quirky, lots of fun little comedic bits. That kind of thing where everything just kind of keeps spiraling out of control until the character hits rock bottom or, it hits a wall or something. I thought that was really quite fun. But look, again, these aren't absolute classics. If you're a fan of Jerry Lewis though, if you love these comedies kinds of things, I would definitely recommend getting your hands on them because it's kind of interesting to look at this period of this man's career. The transfers on both of these movies are really quite good. The press release doesn't mention anything about these being new transfers. It just simply says 1080p high definition transfer, which tells me they're probably an older master, probably were used on DVD, but they pull up pretty well here. They're not fantastic. They're not, incredibly crisp and clean, but they do the job fairly well. The Big Mouth was released in Germany about a year ago, but that is the only release of that film, and Hook, Line and Sinker hasn't been released anywhere on Blu-ray. So these are two worldwide exclusives right here, so if you want to get your hands on them, go for it. Coming in at number 104 and 105 is the Odd Couple collection. This includes the original 1968 Odd Couple, the 1998 reunion film The Odd Couple 2, and The Odd Couple on Television, featuring a selection of classic episodes from the 1970s television series based on the original film. This one, of course, once again comes in a hard box, which features all 3 of the collections in individual Amaray cases. In The Odd Couple, Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau play 2 divorced men who decide to share an apartment. Felix Ungar is fussy and fastidious. Oscar Madison is slovenly and sloppy. Sure, they can live together, but can they live together without killing each other? In The Odd Couple 2, it's 20 years later, and having gone their separate ways, the 2 are now together again en route to the wedding of their children. They've got the map, the rental car, and a tank full of arguments. In the 1970s television series, can 2 divorced men share an apartment without driving each other crazy? 10 episodes covering all 5 seasons explore this rhetorical question. Tony Randall and Jack Klugman make the characters their own in the award-winning television version. The box set is loaded with bonus features, including audio commentaries, featurettes, trailers, and other bits and pieces, most of which are legacy supplements presented on previous DVD and Blu-ray editions of the film and series. The Odd Couple is one of the greatest classic comedy films of all time. Jack Lemmon, of course, as you know, is one of my favourites. Walter Matthau is fantastic as well. This is a movie that penetrated pop culture in such a way that they had made 2 movies. They did that TV series in the 1970s. They revived the TV series in 2015 with Matthew Perry and Thomas Lennon. There have been various international foreign language versions of the movies and the series as well. It was a pop culture phenomenon when this first came out, and it has kind of trickled on down through the years, as you can tell. And the movie certainly lives up to its reputation because it is really such a fun ride. And if you're a fan of classic comedy, you're definitely going to want to check this one out. The second movie is also quite fun. It's not as good as the first one, but it is really fun. It is your typical 1990s kind of road trip film. The comedy is still great. Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau are elderly by this point, but their comedic timing is still fantastic. Their chemistry is great. Around this same time, they also made the 2 Grumpy Old Men films as well, which are both wonderful, 2 of my favorites. The television show is a lot of fun as well. It's one of those classic comedy sitcom series that almost everybody loves. I've checked out these 10 episodes and they are so much fun. It is such a great take on these characters, and the great thing is it's something that took on a life of its own as well, away from the movies, which I think is really great. The transfers on these are quite good. The 2 movies have been released internationally on Blu-ray in the past. The first one has been released a couple of times actually, and the second one I think Amazon did like one of those exclusive print-on-demand kind of things for that one. So I imagine what Imprint has done here is they've used the same ports that were used on these original Blu-rays that have been provided to them by the studio. These aren't like brand new remasters or anything like that. The TV series, however, has never been released on Blu-ray anywhere before. Again, this isn't the entire series, it's only 10 episodes, but it's really kind of a nice supplement to have in this set. I really, really love the inclusion of them here. These are in HD, so you can check these out in their full HD glory. They look really nice. They don't look incredible. I've seen television from this era look better. I've also seen television from the era look worse on home media. This is kind of a mid-ground. It's not incredibly crisp and clear. It does feel a little bit softer. Almost feels like it might be a little bit of an upscale, but they still look really quite nice. Overall, I think this is a really great box set. Again, if you're a fan of classic comedy, whether that movies or television, whatever else, I think this is one of the coolest box sets that Imprint has released so far, and a big surprise, particularly with the inclusion of the television series in there as well. If you're a fan of all this kind of stuff, I definitely recommend picking up this set. Coming in at number 106 is The Return of the Pink Panther. After he lets a robbery transpire right under his nose, the ever-bumbling Inspector Clouseau is suspended by Chief Inspector Dreyfus. But when the famed Pink Panther diamond is stolen from the National Museum in Lugach, the Shah requests Clouseau's assistance, and he's reinstated. Clouseau quickly concludes that the thief must be the infamous Phantom, against whom he has a grudge, but the inspector's instincts are, as usual, wrong. This disc comes with a number of bonus features, including an audio commentary, a featurette, and an isolated music and effects audio track, plus TV spots and theatrical trailers. All of these supplements are legacy features from previous DVD collections. Okay, so The Return of the Pink Panther is the 4th film in the Pink Panther film franchise. I have been waiting and waiting and waiting for the Pink Panther movies to arrive on Blu-ray in Australia. It has just never, ever happened. A couple of years ago, they issued, Shout Factory issued a box set of all of the movies over in the USA, so I had my fingers crossed, maybe one day this will show up in Australia. Finally, one of the movies has shown up, but again, it's the 4th movie in the collection. I don't know what the deal with this is. I know all of the movies were released by United Artists, so I imagine the copyright's the same, but whether Viavision, Imprint hasn't been able to secure the rights for all of the movies, or they have randomly just decided to release this 4th one, or I don't know. I feel like if they were going to release all of them, they would have started with the first one. It just feels a little bit odd to me that they would release the 4th one first in the middle of a collection, instead of releasing all of them in a row, or, you know, in perhaps one of their box set things. Bit confused by this, a little bit disappointed, because this also tells me it might be difficult on the Australian market to get all these Pink Panther movies, and I might be forced to import from the US, but I don't really want to do that because that box set is region locked, I believe, but I better look into that. But anyway, this is a decently fun Pink Panther movie. It's definitely not the best of the bunch. This one was made in the middle 70s. I would say the best ones are probably the first 2, made in the early to mid 1960s. But of course, we've got Peter Sellers here as Inspector Clouseau. He's the best in this role. Peter Sellers is just such a great, dry, comedic performer, has a really great droll style, really, really understated kind of slapstick style. Unlike Jerry Lewis, who's over the top and just crazy and stuff, you got Peter Sellers, who's more refined and does things just so smart. His comedic timing is just so wonderful. And it's all on display here in The Return of the Pink Panther. But again, I'm just a little bit disappointed that we didn't get the other movies as well. Don't know what's going there. Viavision, let me know. I want the rest of them. We want the rest of them. But look, this is a fun movie and definitely worth picking up if you're a fan of these kinds of things. The transfer on this is pretty good as well. It's kind of your stock standard. Again, it doesn't say anything about this being a new master or anything. Simply a 1080p presentation of the movie. I would imagine that this is probably the exact same transfer that has been used on those Shout Factory releases. I think Shout Factory did a box set and also released this one individually. So I'd imagine this is the exact same transfer. Again, no new bonus features on this, which is a little bit odd for an imprint release. Instead, they have just put a bunch of legacy features on there, which I imagine would have been on the previous Blu-ray or DVD. It's probably just the same port. But again, look, a little bit disappointing we didn't get the original movies, but I'm happy to at least have one of them on Blu-ray. Just Viavision, please, let's get the rest out there. At number 107, it's The Bad News Bears in Breaking Training. The picture picks up the Bears' career a year after their infamous second-place finish in the North Valley League in the first movie. Faced with a chance to play the Houston Toros for a shot at the Japanese champs, they devise a way to get Texas to play at the famed Astrodome. This new edition features 2 brand new audio commentaries, one by director Michael Pressman and one by film historian Scott Harrison. So, of course, Imprint released the first Bad News Bears movie on Blu-ray about a year ago. Such a wonderful comedic film. So funny. Walter Matthau plays the coach in that one. He's this kind of gruff, no care coach who just really doesn't give a shit he's there because he has to be there. And but it's got a great, like, you know, heart to it. This movie, the second one in the series, this focuses more so on the players than the coach. Walter Matthau is not in it, so immediately it loses this really great comedic element, this really great even dramatic element in Walter Matthau. Once he's gone, the movie really loses a lot of the spark, a lot of the charm of the original movie. This one's still enjoyable. There's some good moments here with the players of the Bad News Bears team. They get up to some fun little antics and stuff, but it's certainly nothing like the first movie. This is so typical of one of these, you know, 1970s remakes where they make it straight away. They don't get all the cast from the original movie, and it's just kind of like a shell of the original one. It surprises me actually that they did put this into this collection here, the Imprint collection, because it is a lesser known, sort of much maligned entry in the Bad News Bears franchise. There is a third movie, which I believe was a straight-to-TV film. I don't think that they will release that one to this collection, and if they do, I'll be very, very surprised. But look, I'm happy to own this one because, you know, I can put it alongside the first one. It's a bit odd that they didn't do like a box set. Maybe they didn't, you know, have the rights to both movies up front or whatever else. So it would have been nice to have like a Bad News Bears box set or whatever. But look, it is a decent decent movie. I'm glad to have it in the collection. The transfer on this is pretty decent. Again, nothing new, nothing special, no new restoration or anything like that. This is a standard 1080p transfer. Assuming it's probably a dated transfer. It does have some print damage and it's not incredibly clean or crisp, but it doesn't look 100% great, but it does the job and it looks okay. And again, normally I probably wouldn't say that this thing kind of belongs in this collection, particularly with the state that it's in, but because the first movie was in this collection, I think, we can cut it a little bit of slack. But if you did enjoy the first movie, I would definitely recommend checking this one out. Just don't expect anything that's anywhere near as good as that one. And finally, at number 108, we have 1970s The Out-of-Towners. George, played by Jack Lemmon, has been offered a promotion that would relocate him to New York City. He flies in with his wife, Gwen, Sandy Dennis, to the city for the job interview. After their flight is redirected to Boston due to heavy fog, the couple meets with disaster. Their luggage is missing, leaving them without money, and the entire city seems to be striking. George and Gwen struggle to survive the night before George's interview, questioning whether they want to move from their small town. This set comes bundled with a couple of special features, including a brand new audio commentary by film historian Lee Gambin and a theatrical trailer. Alright, we've got another Jack Lemmon film. Of course, we had Jack Lemmon in the two Odd Couple movies. We also had a couple of Jack Lemmon films released from Umbrella recently. I showed those off in the previous video, which again you can check out linked at the end here. And now we've got The Out-of-Towners. This is another absolutely classic Lemmon film, a great classic comedy from the 1970s. I'd never actually watched this one. I have seen the remake, the 1990s remake with Steve Martin many, many times. Steve Martin is one of my absolute favorites, one of my comedic idols. I think he's just incredible. And I've watched that, the remake multiple times, but never actually got around to watching the original, which, might I say, is just as fantastic. Jack Lemmon is great in this role. Sandy Dennis is really fantastic too. The chemistry here is really wonderful. There's so many great little gags. Again, it's this really smart comedy, really wonderfully timed comedy that just snaps. It's so good. Again, this is a first-time release on Blu-ray anywhere in the world. It comes from a 1080p transfer from Paramount Pictures, which tells me this will probably be released under the Paramount Presents label at some time in the near future. But that said, because it just simply says 1080p high definition presentation in this press release, I take that as meaning that this isn't a new transfer or anything like that. It's probably an older master. That said, it looks really nice. It's a really crisp, really clean, really filmic image on this one. I thought it looked really great, especially for a movie of its time or a comedy of its time. This looks really great. It holds up great. Again, if you're a fan of these kinds of comedies, I would definitely recommend it, because it's probably one of my favorite comedies from the era I've ever seen. I really loved it. Okay, at that, we have got all the Imprint titles out of the way. Now let's take a look at some of the most recent releases from Viavision. First up, we have got a special edition Blu-ray release of 1991 cult classic Drop Dead Fred. Every kid has an imaginary friend, only Elizabeth isn't a kid, and Drop Dead Fred is anything but imaginary. With a haircut this bad, he has to be real, and his mischief has Elizabeth in big trouble. This is one of those movies that I kind of evaded during my childhood. A lot of people I knew loved this movie. This was like one of their favorite sort of family movies when they were growing up. Of course, very much so a family film, a kid's film. And a lot of people I knew absolutely loved it. It's just one that I never really managed to get around to watching, but one that I've always been interested in checking out. Of course, it is one of those things where I feel like if you haven't grown up with a love for it, you're probably not going to find a love for it later in your life. I'm 30 years old now. Checking this one out for the first time really did not do it for me. In fact, this movie was just plain annoying. The main character, Drop Dead Fred, I know he's supposed to be annoying, but he is just frustrating. This movie is so wacky, so over the top, so obnoxious that it's annoying. It's just an annoying movie. I do understand why people like this. I feel like if I'd grown up with this, I probably would have liked this. I probably would have thought it was just absolutely hilarious, because it is dumb, it's really stupid, and I can't understand why it's kind of gone on to be like this cult family classic over the years. But as it stands, as a 30-year-old experiencing this for the first time, time, just did not like it one bit. The transfer on this is really nice though, so for fans of this movie, if you want to get your hands on the Blu-ray for the very first time, you can go out and get it. It looks really nice. It's filmic, it's crisp, it's clean. I believe, I'm not sure how new or recent this transfer is. It's only just been released on Blu-ray in the USA, but it's been out in the UK since like 2016, I think. So I imagine this is probably an older transfer that's been ported across to this release here. But look, if you're a fan of the movie, you can get it on Blu-ray right now. If you're not a fan of the movie, you've never watched it, I would say probably go into this with a little bit of trepidation because it really isn't that great. Next up, we have the 1988 miniseries of Jack the Ripper, starring Michael Caine and Jane Seymour. In 1888, a reign of murderous terror struck East London. To this day, the case is unsolved, and the killer is known only by his infamous nickname. But the truth may at last have been found. Based on breakthrough research at the time it was made, this gripping what if suggests who wielded the surgically sharp blade of death and why his identity has been concealed. Alright, so this is a mini-series that I've wanted to watch for a long time. You all know that I'm a fan of mini-series. I'm also a fan of Michael Caine. I'll watch anything that he's done or does. And I'm really fascinated with kind of Victorian-era London, Jack the Ripper and all that kind of stuff. I just think that time period is really, really fascinating to me. So this is the kind of thing that I've always wanted to check out. Finally got a chance to. This was released on Blu-ray by Network in the UK a couple of years ago. So it's a little bit disappointing to see that we only got a DVD of this. But that said, the DVD presentation here actually looks really, really good. I was watching this thinking, this looks great. This could almost be a Blu-ray. Now, I believe when Network released this on Blu-ray, they did an extensive rescan of the original magnetic tracks and the original film, whatever, that this was shot on, or the original masters or whatever. So it was complete, remaster of the original elements. This looks so good here that I imagine they have used the Network HD files to produce this DVD set. Why they didn't produce a Blu-ray set, I don't know. Whether they will in the future, I don't know. Maybe they will. They often will do this. They release the DVD and then, a few months to a year later, they release the Blu-ray as well. I'd really, really love to see them do that because I really like this. I thought it was fantastic. Michael Caine is great. Jane Seymour is great as well. It really is a really kind of interesting whodunit, which does keep you on your feet the entire time. It's in two parts. Each part acts as its own kind of mini movie, and it's, easy to watch over 2 sittings, or you can watch it in 1 sitting if you want. Each part's about an hour and a half to 2 hours long, so it's like this 3.5, 4-ish hour kind of epic movie about this. You've got to take it with a grain of salt because, of course, no one ever figured out who Jack the Ripper really was. And even though you know that, we don't have a definitive answer at the end, it doesn't ruin the enjoyment of this one as you go along on this journey. I think it's so much fun. And again, I'd love to see this one released on Blu-ray. But for now, this DVD is actually really, really very good, really high quality. And I recommend it if you want to check this one out. We also have the complete collection of the 1968 series Joe 90 from Jerry and Sylvia Anderson. This includes all 30 remastered episodes plus special features. Professor Ian McLean, a brilliant computer expert, has invented an incredible device called Big Rat, brain impulsive galvanoscope record and transfer. It enables the knowledge and experience of one person to be transferred to another. He demonstrates the machine to his friend Sam Louver by transferring his own brain patterns to his adopted son, Joe. Joe 90 is such a fun little series. This, of course, again comes from Jerry and Sylvia Anderson, the masterminds behind the Thunderbirds, Stingray, so many of these other great little kind of marionette series back in the 1960s. I had never seen Joe 90 before, so it was really great to get a chance to have a look at a few episodes, and this one's really fun. It's made with that same artistic, fantastical flair as you would imagine from Thunderbirds or whatever else. Viavision has been releasing a bunch of the Jerry and Sylvia Anderson stuff recently, and this is the latest release in these kind of wave, these line of releases. These are again remastered episodes, but unfortunately only released here in Australia on DVD. Once again, Network over in the UK released these on Blu-ray recently, so I imagine that what's been used here on this DVD is the same Blu-ray ports from those Blu-rays from the UK. Again, like Jack the Ripper, this looks really great on DVD. These HD remasters pull up really, really well, but it would be nice just to get that, that Blu-ray experience of this. I would love it. Like, I could even imagine Viavision putting something out like this on Blu-ray through the Imprint line or something like that. It just baffles me that something so classic like this doesn't get that Blu-ray release that it really does deserve on this local market. But hey, it doesn't bother me too much. It's good. I've got it in the collection right now, so I'm happy with that. And I'm really excited to get my hands on all these other Jerry Sylvia Anderson things that Viavision are putting out going forward over the next few months. Very exciting. But if you're a fan of this show and you can't be bothered with the import and all that kind of stuff, this is a great way to get these remastered episodes. You won't be disappointed. It is such a fun show, so check it out. And finally from Viavision is Prisoner Collection 1, Seasons 1 and 2. Join the inmates of Wentworth Detection Centre for the first 165 episodes of the groundbreaking Australian soap series, which follows the trials and tribulations of popular characters including Queen Bee Smith, Doreen Anderson and Lizzie Birdsworth as they fight for survival in a life behind bars. This collection is presented across 41 discs and again includes the entire first 2 seasons of 165 episodes of Prisoner. This is presented inside a large box set with individual Amore cases for each part of each season. There is 7 individual Amore cases all up. Prisoner is one of the most classic Australian television series of all time. This soap opera ran for almost 700 episodes across 80 years. And this box set, this massive behemoth of a box set, 41 discs and 165 episodes, is only the first 2 seasons. I can't believe it. This isn't a great show. It's very, very soapy. It's very, very, crass and exploitative and just very over the top, what you would imagine from an Aussie soap from, this time period, the late 70s, early 80s. But it's something that I wanted to have in my collection because, I love collecting Aussie films, Aussie TV series, and this is one of the kind of quintessential Australian series. So it's good to see Viavision are keeping this out in print on the Australian market. They're going to be doing a bunch of volumes of this. I imagine it would be probably at least 4 volumes to take, the entire 8 seasons of this show. I think this is the only one I'm going to get my hands on. I don't need all of them. This is going to take up so much space. As I said, there's 7 individual Amore cases. It would take up like an entire shelf. I don't have that space at the moment, so I'm happy to just have, a couple of the seasons in my collection here. They don't look great. These are the same ports I imagine have been, reused over and over and over and over and over again on these DVDs. The amount of times these have been reissued on DVD is absolutely crazy. They've done complete box sets, they've done individual parts, they've done individual seasons, they've done these collections, etc. So this has always been in print at some point. I think it has been out of print for a little while, but Viavision is finally getting it back out there on the market, which I think is great. So if you're a fan of this show, it's out there on the market again right now. You can pick it up. Again, if you've never watched this, don't expect anything too exciting. And again, at like nearly 700 episodes, it's a very, very long watch. It's something that I will certainly never watch the entirety of. But again, happy to have this in the collection. I did want to just kind of spotlight this one to you. Alright, so that's everything that's been sent in from the distributors this month. Now let's take a look at a bunch of stuff that I've personally picked up for myself over the last month or so. Firstly, let's take a look at an order that I placed on UK website Signal One. This is a really great boutique label in the UK. They ran for a number of years releasing, and they only put out a small handful of titles, most of which are classic movies, mostly from 20th Century Fox. They disappeared off the market for a little while. I think they went out of business or something. Someone bought them out again, and a couple of years later they're back now. So they announced a couple of releases like 3 years ago that didn't come out until they came back into business, which is crazy. Now they had this big sale on recently. It was like a big celebration clearance sale because they're back, and most of the titles were like 50% off, 50 to 60% off clearance on all of this stuff. And there was a whole bunch of titles that I've wanted to pick up from them for ages. It's been really hard to import stuff from them because the prices are really expensive and their shipping is really crazy and stuff. But because they had this sale, I got on and I had a look. I thought, I can't pass up some of these prices, particularly because this is one of those websites where when you add the item to the cart, it removes the VAT tax if you're shipping internationally. So these titles, which have been marked down by like 50, 60%, they were taking another 10% off at the checkout. So I got most of these titles down to like £4, something like that, which is like $8, absolutely dirt cheap. So I just loaded the cart up with pretty much everything I've wanted to get from them. There's a few newer releases I haven't got yet, but I'll get them somewhere further down the line. online, and I realized I put so much in here that I'd saved more on VAT than I was spending on the shipping, and it actually made it cheaper for me to buy and import to Australia than it would have been for me to buy in the UK and ship to a UK address with free shipping. Absolutely crazy. So it made this a no-brainer. So I just absolutely piled up. The great thing about these is, again, most of these are 20th Century Fox films, most of which are now owned by Disney, and there's absolutely no way any of these are going to get any other kind of physical media release after, you know, the allotted stock for Signal One has sold out. This is my last chance, so I just went absolutely wild and I bought a whole bunch of stuff. Great deals on all of these. Let's take a look. I got Rawhide. This is the 1951 Western starring Tyrone Power and Susan Hayward. Love both of the actors. I love a good Western from that era. So I'm really, really excited to have a look at this one. I also got the 1959 film Compulsion. This stars Orson Welles alongside a really great cast of people. Don't really know too much about this, but I believe it's like a courtroom thriller. Really love that kind of stuff. I love Orson Welles, so I was keen to check that one out. We got a film from the late 80s called Black Widow, starring Deborah Winger and Theresa Russell. Really don't know much about this. I believe it's like a cat and mouse thriller sort of thing. Of course, this is not the Marvel Black Widow. Maybe that was some weird kind of psychological thing that made me want to pick this one up. This is actually on Disney Plus in Australia, but I did want to pick up the Blu-ray. This is a movie that I'm really interested in taking a look at. We picked up Eyewitness, which is like a 1980s thriller starring William Hurt and Sigourney Weaver and Christopher Plummer. Don't really know too much about this one, but it looks like the kind of thriller that I really, really enjoy and love all the actors in there. We also picked up Between Heaven and Hell. This is a war thriller from the middle 50s starring Robert Wagner and Terry Moore. I love these kinds of movies from this era, so of course had to check that one out. Kiss of Death. This is a late 40s film noir starring Victor Mature, Brian Donlevy, Colleen Gray, and Richard Widmark. Again, really fantastic performers from that era and this genre. You know that I absolutely love my film noirs. Every time I can get a cheap film noir, I have to pick it up to bulk up that collection. I just absolutely adore these kinds of movies. I got The Three Faces of Eve. This is a really highly acclaimed drama from the late 1950s starring Joanne Woodward. Don't really know too much about it, but it's one that I've always been keen on getting my hands on, so very happy I was able to. Likewise, The Sun Also Rises. This is based on the Ernest Hemingway novel and produced by Darryl F. Zanuck, who produced some incredible films back in the 1940s, 1950s. This one stars Tyrone Power, Ava Gardner, Mel Ferrer, Errol Flynn, Eddie Albert. How could I say no to this one? It's going to be a kind of melodramatic, soapy drama, I think, but some powerhouse performers in there. I'm really excited to have a look at that one. We've got a 1970s thriller called The Seven Ups. This stars Roy Scheider, of course, from Jaws. I really like his movies, the ones that I have seen, and it comes from the producer of Bullet and The French Connection. I mean, how could I say no to this one? It's one I almost did pass on, but I thought, you know, at the last minute, I got to grab that one. Likewise, we've got another Roy Scheider film in here called The Last Embrace. This one also stars Janet Margolin. It's from the same era. Don't really know too much about this one, but apparently it's quite a decent thriller, so I thought I'd pair that one up as well. Another great sort of noirish thriller is The Iron Curtain from 1948. This one stars Dana Andrews and Gene Tierney, and it's directed by William A. Wellman, who directed some really great stuff. Again, I just love being able to pick up a classic movie like this for cheap. Had to grab it. Another one right here is Panic in the Streets. It's another noir, crime, hard-boiled thriller. It stars Richard Widmark, Paul Douglas, and is directed by the great Elia Kazan. Another one that I just could absolutely not say no to. And another great crime drama thriller from the 1940s. It's Manhunt, which stars Walter Pidgeon, Joan Bennett, and George Sanders. This is kind of like a post-war thriller, I believe, set in London. It's got some drama, it's got some romance in there. It is directed by the absolutely amazing Fritz Lang. I've been building up my Fritz Lang collection recently, mostly thanks to Eureka and Arrow and Criterion as well, so I had to grab this one right here. We've also got Doc. This is an early 70s Western starring Stacy Keach, Faye Dunaway, and Harris Yulin. All great performers, directed by Frank Perry. This is a fairly under-known film. I only really became aware of it recently. This is yet another retelling of the gunfight at the OK Corral, except except it's got a bit of a spin on it. This is from the perspective of Doc Holliday, who is usually depicted as the villain of this story. So this one's going to be a really interesting one to take a look at. Also got The Guns at Battersea, which is a 1960s British war flick directed by the great John Gilliman. I love the war flicks from this era that came out of England. It's just always so good, so big and boisterous and over the top, and I just love them so much. This one's got Richard Attenborough in the lead role. Apparently, he delivers a fantastic performance in this, so I'm so excited to watch this one. Also got Stagecoach. This is one of the all-time classics that I have just never gotten around to watching. This is one of those big epic movies with a huge cast: Anne Margaret, Red Buttons, Michael Connors, Alex Cord, Bing Crosby, Bob Cummins, and so many more, including Slim Pickens, who's always great as well. I don't know too much about this, but I know it's like a really fun Western kind of comedy adventure film, and I'm really excited to take a look at that one. So happy to finally get my hands on that. I've been wanting to see it for a long time. And finally, I picked up a copy of Eric the Viking. This is the special edition, which comes in this really gorgeous hard box right here. It's got a little booklet with it and all that stuff. This was really dirt cheap too. I was surprised that this was included in the sale. This is, of course, a fantasy comedy from the late 1980s, directed by one of the Monty Python guys, Terry Jones. It's got a couple of the Monty Python guys in there as well, including Terry Jones and John Cleese. It stars Tim Robbins, Mickey Rourke, Eartha Kitt. I really don't know too much about this. It doesn't look great, but I love these movies that the Monty Python guys kind of made post-Monty Python. You know, Terry Gilliam made a lot of films sort of around this time as well, the late 70s, throughout the 80s, Jabberwocky, Time Bandits, and it just feels like a movie that's kind of built in that same sort of mold. It looks pretty crappy, but it looks like a lot of fun, and I've been collecting all of the Gilliam films recently, and I thought, yeah, I got to get this Terry Jones one into the collection. All right, so that is all of the Signal 1 titles. Now let's take a look at a bunch of stuff that I picked up at recent JB Hi-Fi sales. Recently they did a 30% off all Blu-rays and DVDs and 4Ks, etc. And there was also a 5% discount code in the email, so you essentially got 35% off. I picked up this one right here, which is The Batman, the complete series. This is that really great kind of mid-2000s Batman animated series. This has just been released on Blu-ray for the first time, obviously to kind of cash in with the release of the new movie on Blu-ray. This is the entire series across 6 discs. I love my DC animated stuff, so I had to pick this one up. With the 35% off, it came down to like $35 or $31, $32 or something like that. Absolute no-brainer. It's always pretty difficult to find the DC stuff on sale, so I had to pick this one up. Okay, these next 2 Blu-rays were picked up in the same 35% off sale, but they were also part of a previously existing 2 for $40 deal. So I got the 2 for $40 with the 35% off on top. It essentially came to like 2 for $26, which is like $13 a title. I thought absolute steal for both of these. First up, continuing on the DC train, I picked up the complete first season of Superman and Lois. Not usually a huge fan of this DC live action television stuff, particularly the stuff in the Arrowverse. I'm just not a fan of whatsoever. But what I have seen of Superman and Lois, I really like. So I wanted to pick this one up and check it out. Smallville was one of my favorite series of all time. Superman's one of my favorite superheroes of all time. So I think I'll really enjoy this one. Had to pick it up, especially for only $13. I also picked up this one to match with it. It took me ages to find something. I went through the entire, like, you know, 30-page list of titles in this deal, and I finally stumbled across this, The Night Manager. This is a mini-series starring Hugh Laurie and Tom Hiddleston. I've wanted to see this for a very long time. Actually thought I already had it in the collection, but I didn't. So I had to pick that one up to complement it. $13, what a bargain. Now we've got another couple of titles here that were part of this massive clearance sale that JB were randomly doing. I think a lot of these stuff are titles that are either out of print or were released by distributors who are now out of business, and they're just kind of clearing all the stock. I think I spotlit a few of these clearance titles last month, but these are a few more that I picked up kind of, or that came through after I had to order them online, or, you know, I had to go pick them up in store, or that was just you know, I got them after the last video, but it was part of that same clearance sale. Most of these were like $1.50 or $2 or whatever, just absolutely dirt cheap prices. Some are not the greatest titles around, but they were so cheap I had to pick them up. Firstly, we've got My Dinner with Hervé. This is an HBO tally movie that was released back in 2018. It's a look at the life of French actor Hervé Villechaize, who was the co-star of the hit 1970s TV series Fantasy Island. He is, of course, played here by Peter Dinklage, and we've got Jamie Dornan in there as well, who plays a journalist, and Andy Garcia is in there as well. I haven't seen this, I'd never even heard of this, but it was only a couple of dollars. It's got good ratings and stuff, so I'm really keen to check this one out. Picked up the 3rd season of Inside Amy Schumer. This was Amy Schumer's, you know, sketch comedy series. Of course, Amy Schumer's stuff is, you know, a bit of a acquired taste for many people, but I really quite like her stuff, and I had the first 2 seasons on DVD, and, you know, this was only a couple of bucks. So I thought, you know, well, why not? I'll pick that up while I still have the chance. We've got What's My Name? Muhammad Ali. This is a really great HBO documentary film that goes for about 2.5 hours on the life of Muhammad Ali. It is such a great little docu-film. I watched this on a plane a couple of years ago. I didn't actually realize it was out on DVD. I think I would have picked this one up ages ago if I already knew that it was out. I mean, I love the HBO sport documentaries. I love documentaries in general, and this is just really fantastic. And for only a couple of bucks, I really wanted to add this one to the collection. We picked up a couple of American Pickers box sets. I'm not really a huge fan of these kind of history, discovery, A&E sort of, you know, reality kind of shows. But American Pickers is something that's just so up my alley. I love the kind of junk that these guys find. I'm a bit of a hoarder myself, and, you know, a collector and all that kind of stuff. So it is quite interesting to see what these guys find just kind of in, you know, people's garages out in the Midwest of America or whatever else. And I just think it's so great. So we picked up a couple of box sets. Also picked up the 2nd season of Cosmos from National Geographic. This one is, of course, Cosmos Possible Worlds. This is a really fantastic natural history documentary series presented by Neil deGrasse Tyson, where, you know, they talk all about the cosmos and the universe and the planets and the stars and life and all that kind of stuff. I really love the 1st season, and I've been wanting to check out the 2nd one. Unfortunately, they only did release this on DVD. The 1st season got a Blu-ray release. But they did release it, and it looks like it might be going out of print because, of course, National Geographic is owned by Disney now, and I think Madman may have lost the National Geographic distribution license. So it looks like, because this is part of the clearance sale, they probably are putting this one out of print. And with that, that is absolutely everything we're going to cram into this video today. Of course, I'll be back in a month to cover the latest releases, which I'm currently plowing through so that I can cover for you all then. Once again, thanks to the distributors for sending in stuff for me to take a look at. It's always appreciated. And thanks to everybody out there for watching. Again, sorry for the delays on these ones. There's been so much coming in. There might be a slight delay on next month's ones as well, but I will, of course, keep you all up to date, and I'll see you in about a month's time. So thanks once again. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Hey everyone, if you haven't yet, smash that big old subscribe button up on your screen to keep up to date with all my content, and hit that like button down below. Also, don't forget to check me out on social media, and please consider supporting me over on Patreon for as little as $1 a month for exclusive videos, early access content, and to get your name up on the screen. Thanks again for watching.